in more trivial examples of life, one may be tempted. I think call this affirmation of people. Supposing you're young and you're going along with your wife to a dress shop and she says, darling, do I look fat in this garment? Now, any self-respecting husband who wants a future may that particular
yes,
point.
You do. Yeah, exactly.
You look wonderful.
Yeah,
There are going to be times, or going back to my day when I was very young, long time ago, if you took a child along to the dentist, Daddy, will this hurt? The answer is, yes, it jolly well is going to hurt, and they're going to gash you, and so on. But you say, no, darling, fine, you'll be okay. So, in other words, at the trivial end, we're all doing this day by day.
But, but
when he discovers that it does actually hurt, what does he then say to Daddy?
Well, by that time it's over, and by that time he puts.
But is he going to believe you next time? Is he going to believe you next time?
If you're going to be brutal and go in, I think you undermine and damage a relationship. We're talking about those ordinary moments of life, but I'm talking about the gentleman's point about for a nation, for an individual, honesty,
spirit,
truthfulness,
honesty,
everything like that must be consistent.
Anne Widdecombe, is it all right for a politician, any politician, for example, say that politician is asked the question, have you ever taken drugs? And that politician says, I'm not going to answer that.
Well, that's a truthful answer.
Question.
I'm not going to answer. It's a truthful answer.
But it's an evasion. Is it a lie?
No, it's not a lie. If he says, I'm not going to answer, I mean, two things happen. One is...
Evasion's fine.
No, you're not letting me finish. Now, that's silly. If we're going to go like that, we're not going to get anywhere. He says, I do get quite impatient, actually, when things are tried to be distorted. What I'm saying is, if somebody says, I'm not answering that question, that is a very straightforward question. Sorry, I'm just not answering. Secondly, everybody with an ounce of intelligence then knows what the answer actually is.
Is it not
Think about it.
Still evasive, though, Jonathan?
I think that is evasive, and I wish that we'd saw more honesty, more upfrontness from our politicians, and I think the public is generally more forgiving than we perhaps take credit. But I think that the key here is the spirit. It's about, I mean, come back to the Christian idea. As a Christian, when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, he brought truth into something that wasn't an abstract, factual entity. It was something that was born out in relationship. It's about that relationship between the parent and the child. It's about the relationship between the politician and the electors. It's about how we relate to one another. And if it's driven by love, we will muddle through. We will make mistakes.
Yeah.
But if we have that love at the core, then I think we're on the right track.
Richard Dawkins, was Bill Clinton right to say, I did not have sexual relations with that woman?
I think that politicians should tell the truth about things that really matter. When it is a private matter, however, if he had said, I'm not going to answer that question, Anne Widdecombe is entirely right, people would have drawn the obvious conclusion. If a politician is asked by a journalist something which is no damn business of that journalist, then don't say, I'm not going to answer that question. You have a positive duty to lie, it seems to me.
What?
Because it is no business of a journalist to ask somebody in public life
but
about
Richard,
their
in
private
political
life.
literature, in your manifesto, you put your pictures of your family and your wife and your children if you're a male politician, and vice versa if you're a female one. You play on your private interests, your hobbies in your election material. You put your private life on display when you're campaigning. You know enough politicians.
Well, maybe that's a lie too.
To then withdraw that from the public when it doesn't suit.
But supposing you don't. I mean, there are...
I don't know many politicians who don't.
But there are some politicians who say, family's private, this is me, this is public. Do you really think that the press and media then respect that line which the politician has drawn?
No, of course they don't.
Because, of course, they don't.
But the reality is there are very few politicians that do that, and the ones that have been caught out are usually the ones that have to put their family on public display.
But when you say caught out, I mean, I think Anne Widdecombe is entirely right. If you refuse to answer, they will draw the obvious conclusion. So the only way to protect your privacy is to say, is to lie.
No, you mustn't do that.
And,
no, you mustn't do
John, let me ask you, John. I mean, we talk about little lies.
Well,
what do you do if a friend is in a... Let me ask you this question. If a friend is in a show or whatever, and you go backstageafterwards, and they have been absolutely dreadful, and they... How was I?
It was good. It was good. There's parts of it I enjoyed, but it was good. That's what you say.
So it's okay to lie, then?
Well, it's okay if, like we were speaking about earlier, that it's okay to say it if you're going to, I think, those minor occasions. But I had Andrew Neil many, many years ago when I was presenting Live and Kicking. He was on, and at the time I wasn't openly, in the public eye. I was with my friends and family gay, but never said anything publicly. And I asked him a question. I said, why do you feel that newspapers have to say things and about people, about their private life? And he said, John, the best thing you can do in your if you're going to go into the public eye is be honest and tell the truth. And so I've lived by that. And Cameron McIntosh and Lloyd Webber have always said to me, they're always amazed at why the press never jumped on me being gay and never made an issue of it. And the reason is because I've always been honest about it. I've just been upfront.
And Jonathan, in a second, and I'll come to you, because there's a point that Lord Carey made earlier on. When it comes to the little things in life, it's fine. But very often, surely there's a massive moral imperative to lie sometimes, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, Bonhoeffer, famously under Nazi Germany, wrestled with this question. If you're hiding Jews in your house and the Nazis come knocking on the door, they ask you, have you got Jews in this house? What do you say?
You say no.
You say no. And that is the key thing. And again, it comes back to this love. And he said that actually the truth on the lips of a liar is a lot worse than lying on the lips of a truthful person in that situation, and looked at it in those kind of terms, and I think he was bang on.
Yeah, well said.
I'm almost going to revert to something that seems to go to the other end of that argument, because that's a very, very powerful point. But just now you said, would you tell somebody who'd given an inadequate performance that it was brilliant, that it was fine? And I think one of the ways now that we almost institutionally lie, and which is quite wrong, is we lie to children about how good they are. Mm. And we've gone into complete reverse. It used to be the case that you taught a child by making it look a fool, which was a horrible method. But now we say that's very good, when actually it's quite shocking. And what we should be saying is...
If a father can't make her girls feel special, who's going to make them feel special?
Yeah, but what you say, when the child produces a piece of work that is no good, instead of saying that's brilliant, you say, look, we could get this a bit better. I mean, you be positive, but you don't actually deceive children, as children are now being deceived, into thinking that they're producing really A-class work.
It's the
when it isn't anything of the sort.
Choice of words, isn't it? And what are people saying? Sonia?
Yeah, a lot are still coming in for blasphemy, Nicky, but I've got this one. Raz, Raz says it's all part of our genetic makeup as human beings to tell little white lies. And I have to say, I've got to add mine, because I was at a party on Friday night where somebody was dancing really badly, and I hope they're not watching. And I had to say, no, it's really great. So I think we all kind of do it. One more question we want you to answer. Should you only be able to fully join a religion once you're an adult? You can call, text, or email across your views to us right now.
So, should religion be only for grown-ups? Is it right that parents should foist their faith on their offspring when their offspring are too young to understand? Well, Professor Richard Dawkins says it's a form of child abuse to indoctrinate children. And it is interesting, you call it, Richard, a violation of childhood by religion, potentially. And you say it can be a grievous wrong to implant faith in the vulnerable mind of an innocent child. But religion's a beautiful thing. Faith can be beautiful, can't it?
I think what I actually said is that it's child abuse to label a child with the religion of its parents when the child is too young to decide what religion it is going to prefer. Infant baptism, when you say this child is from now on going to be a Roman Catholic, or this child is an Anglican, that does seem to me to be abusive. It would be remarkable if we were ever to say, and I've said this many times before, that is a postmodernist child, or that is a Marxist child. Nobody ever says that is a socialist child, but they do say that is a Catholic child, or that is an Anglican child, or that is a Muslim child. And that is once you tell people that, they have their consciousness raised, and they realize, yes, of course, we'd think somebody was mad if he described somebody as a humanist child.
But if a parent passes on the tenets of their faith to their children, isn't that an inevitable process?
That's a bit different, isn't it? That's different from labeling a child and saying you are a Catholic child. Of course, parents are going to pass on all sorts of things to their children, their love of birds, their love of plants, their love of nature, all these sorts of things inevitably are going to be passed on. But nobody says that is an ornithologist child.
What about their belief in heaven and hell?
Yes,